As millions of Americans struggle to pay their bills, Congress still can't come together to pass the next round of stimulus. We just learned that 8 million more Americans have fallen into poverty since just May, when the last round of payments started running out. Plus, tens of millions of people are at risk of having their power turned off if they can't pay their bills as we head into winter. The Washington Post reporting that most states passed moratoriums on the service cuts when the pandemic started, but now fewer than half of those still have those rules in place. And more Americans are behind on their mortgage payments now than at any time since the financial crisis. Despite all that, Congress far from provided that needed relief. Speaker Pelosi, she's negotiating with Steve Mnuchin, and the House Speaker says she and the Treasury Secretary are making some progress, but their nearly $2 trillion proposal, it's pretty much dead on arrival if you believe the Republican-led Senate. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, he's told the White House he doesn't even want to do a deal before Election Day, partly because he says it could interfere with the Senate confirmation of Judge Amy Coney Barrett. McConnell trying to advance a $500 billion bill instead, but it doesn't even include stimulus payments to individuals, so you got to figure that's a non-starter. I want to bring in our guest to discuss that and more. Congresswoman Chrissy Houlahan, she's a Democrat from Pennsylvania. She's also a veteran of the Air Force. Congresswoman, thank you for the time.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me.
You know, I did a primer in terms of where we're at and the reasons why we're not moving forward for something. I know 5 months ago, you guys passed stuff in the House. That all said, try to put a human face on it. Use people from your constituents, if you will. As I understand it from the people I'm talking to, a lot of people are on a razor edge. If these checks don't come in and don't come in soon, they're going to be making decisions between food on the table or paying the light bill.
Sure, and I actually had the opportunity to visit with a small business restaurateur, proprietress of a restaurant this week in Reading. Mi Casa, Su Casa is the name of the place, and she was very, very concerned that, as you mentioned earlier, that winter is coming. She was not only concerned for her business, which is largely at this point takeout and some outdoor dining, but also for surrounding businesses as well, hair salons and barber shops that are really under the gun. The small businesses are under the gun, and of course, she's concerned not just for those small businesses, but the employees who are her employees and others who are, in some cases, no longer with work, as well as she's concerned for the students, whether or not they will continue to be safe in schools in the winter months. So you're right, everybody's sort of on a hair's edge, and they deserve a government that works for them.
What I don't get about this is the politics, in that it's not just blue state folks that are, facing tough times. This is a bipartisan problem here, and also that goes to state aid as well. Why is it politically beneficial, if you're a Republican right now, not to get behind something that's going to help folks? Take the morality out of it, Congresswoman, just the pure politics of it. In an election season, who wants a campaign on not giving needed aid?
I'm 1,000% confounded by that as well. I serve Chester and Berks County. Chester County is at this point controlled by 2 Democratic commissioners and 1 Republican. Berks the inverse, so 2 Republicans and 1 Democratic. And both of those sets of commissioners have independently asked me continuously for the better part of the last 5 or 6 months for state and local municipality aid, as you've mentioned. This is not a partisan issue. This isn't a red versus blue issue or a blue state, red state issue. This is just a human issue. And I am, as you mentioned, confounded by the fact that we seem to be struggling over what makes common sense, helping our state and local municipalities deal with the fact that they have enormous revenue shortfalls, and they've outlaid quite a lot of money that they had in their rainy day funds to address the COVID crisis.
I wanted to ask you, I mentioned before, you're a veteran yourself with the Air Force, but you also are with Armed Services and Foreign Affairs. The conga line of respected and notable folks who served us, both military but also in State Department. I'm talking from Republican and Democratic administrations, as well as even people from this current administration. Names like, Colin Powell, General Kelly, James Mattis, Admiral McCraven, and others that have said our commander-in-chief is not equipped for the job and that he is not acting in our national self-interests. Give an idea to the people who don't understand about just how many stars we're talking about on shoulders here, how significant and somewhat unprecedented that is even people that serve for this president as the chief of staff, to talk about what kind of a danger they believe he is. And now what? We're 12 days from the election.
So what I would say is I am a veteran. I do serve on those committees. My family are also a military family, dad and grandfather, cousins in the service as well. We aren't sort of a monolith in the way that we approach this presidency, but it is remarkable, as you said, and unprecedented, as you said, that so many of us veterans and have stepped forward to have a conversation about what is and is not appropriate about a commander-in-chief and his role in our military. And it is remarkable that so many have said that this is a problem. As you've heard with this particular president, he's maligned Gold Star families. You know, he's frankly told my family and me personally by his words that we are stupid for serving. He has not personally served himself. And I think that his words should mean something. And so I think it should mean something that people are stepping forward and saying that a Biden administration, with full transparency, I'm of course a Democrat, would be a more welcoming administration and more indicative of our values as active duty members as well as veterans.
And obviously, I can only imagine when you heard the comment of losers and suckers in terms of how he viewed people who made the ultimate sacrifice. You're invested in veteran care, and you're very troubled by the rate of suicides that we're seeing of soldiers. Put in context what that comment that we haven't heard from denials from some of the people who apparently were there about losers and suckers, but also about the ongoing problem we have with so many veterans right now struggling with suicide. And we're even seeing some troubling numbers from some active duty folks as well.
Sure. And, this brings us back to the pandemic. And I think during this pandemic, we are all struggling, with issues of mental health and kind of making sure that we're taking care of ourselves and one another. And the veteran population is no exception. Veterans have been increasingly taking their lives by suicide in alarmingly increasing numbers. And so we need to do something about that. And even though we are a very divided Congress, as you've mentioned, in terms of COVID relief, we are not divided in terms of our care for this veteran population. I'm really happy to say that I worked alongside another freshman, General Jack Bergman. We put together some legislation called the Improve Act, which was addressing this scourge of veteran suicide, talking about the importance of making sure that we collaborated with communities, with veterans who may or may not feel comfortable accessing the VA or maybe not have access to the VA, to try to address this really, really critical issue. And I'm really happy to say that that is one of the very few pieces of legislation that has gone through the House, through the Senate, and onto the president's desk for signature.
Well, Congresswoman, thank you for a few minutes, and also thank you for your service.
You're welcome. Thank you as well.
And up next, ABC News political director Rick Klein. He'll join us to discuss how Trump and Biden are making their closing arguments, what's going on behind the scenes on Capitol Hill with that stimulus negotiations, and much more.